Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome, and thanks to the second seminar, which we're seeing today on the subject that was already presented last time, and which today gives us the possibility to face it in from a wider perspective. The new technologies, thank you, and especially the new perspective open up exalting horizons, but also rigorous horizons. And I'd like to remind you of an element and highlight the words of Cardinal Ravasi, which many years ago, when the problem was beginning regarding the ethics, regarding the emergence of these new technologies, he mentioned the psalmist. He quoted the psalmist, who, when he was amazed in front of the human being, exclaimed, "You, O God, have made man a little lesser than the angels of glory, and with glory and honor you crowned him." This is the psalmist. Ravasi continued, and I mentioned one of the seven wise men of Democritus, of Socrates, who coined this other definition: anthropos, mikros, cosmos. Man is a little universe. This is 34 of Democritus, of Democritus. The cardinal, at the end of his talk, he concluded that this microcosm, who is man, contains in himself in the infinite possibilities of his thought, and therefore of his spirit. Everything that now we see, but always remained anchored to his creaturehood, his fragile creaturehood and mortal creaturehood, and an example of a manifestation of his finitude. And all of this remained evident in its essence. That is, modern culture, for reasons of philosophy, has set aside the creature part of man, and beginning with Descartes, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I'm, it was focused on the thought and activity, transcendent activity of man. But at the same time, scientific research counted on the body, material corporeity of that thinking being who is man. Now, in contemporary culture, in modernity, we can call it contemporary world. In philosophy, we have particular concepts in philosophy. In this, the attitude of man is no longer satisfied with being a passive contemplator of his nature in this framework, but he erects himself as a recreator of himself and seeks to modify his own nature in the depths of his organism, of his body, going down to his biology, and also through genetic engineering. And this in the external strata with evidence, and also in the internal states, in these spiritual contemplation. In front of these events, we cannot not keep in mind the words of that come to us from centuries past in history, from Pico della Mirandola, who in the 15th century, he affirmed, this is a man who is a work of, I did not give you to Adam a determined place or any one of your prerogative, because that place in that prerogative that you will desire everything according to your counsel, conserves, and okay. And then he continues, I put you in the middle of the world because so you realize what there is in the world better. I did not make you immortal or immortal, terrestrial or heavenly, because of yourself, almost a sovereign artifacts in you that you would form, in yourself that you chose yourself. You can degenerate into the inferior things. You can, according to your will, regenerate yourself in the higher things which are divine. In this writing, which is called The Dignity of Man, of Pico della Mirandola, it's God that's speaking to man. Man as such is uh, in seeking to form the world, as Pico della Mirandola said in the 15th century, at the beginnings of the Italian Renaissance and humanism, to change the world according to his pleasure. This new horizon was gone through with enthusiasm in the first years of the 20th century by science, like molecular biology and mapping of DNA, and regenerative medicine and biotechnologies, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. They are fields in which we see the concentration of the efforts of researchers. But here we see a big problem, an ethical problem, that is a question or an ethical question appears, in which these fields, which are always represented by extremely slippery boundaries, they oblige us, and they have obliged us to deep questions, to ask deep questions before the perspectives that these ethical questions which feed them. Also because this is an important aspect, we have acquired the awareness that these frontiers can be gone beyond, that we can go beyond these frontiers. Now, here we find ourselves in front of these ethical problems and social problems. And the question of manipulation itself of our identity has made us to find in front of, before a wall or a problem, an ethical problem, which often discomforts us, and in the sense that it hands to us, it gives us a certain certainty regarding the future. What does it mean to go beyond these walls and these boundaries? And uncertainty. Now, in our years of our seminars that we've done, we've seen in previous years, to the world that surrounds us, we've faced themes, subjects that saw us immersed in these forms of these anthropological novelties. We have developed a research on transhumanism, and developed by Julian Luxnim in the first years of the 21st century, and who had given rise to visions already then, which were worrisome. We're talking about the 1900s. Sorry, it's easy to intuit the risks that we have faced and the risks of this generation. Cardinal Ravasi, once again, recalls us the tendency that man faces, which renders him in a rather simple way, and it's not such a profound aspect, but this attitude of improvement in man, we already see that from the applications of plastic surgery, and even we see that years ago, it's been mentioned that years ago, the increase of was 5 to 6,000% increase. Imagine how much we, as a species, there's this attitude that's intrinsic to us to change and to improve ourselves and to form ourselves as Pico de Mandorla just mentioned. This capacity that was given to us to form ourselves and the world that surrounds us. Obviously, it's much more delicate at the ethical level. Radical interventions, not only those of botulism. We're talking about Botox. Okay. We have faced problems regarding the questions of cognitive neurosciences, which have proposed new theories of the mind, through which we've seen the flourishing of multiple philosophical questions and theological and ethical questions. It's enough to think of the questions that are connected to the idea of the soul, or the question of free will, or the question of consciousness and moral responsibility, and how these fields are invaded by several disciplines, and anthropology, law and psychology, and obviously philosophy. Neurosciences are still at the dawn of a complex road, but it's doubtless that the train is full and it has left the station, and it's a train that's very heavy because it has inside of it various elements, scientific and ideas and hypotheses that are inside of a will for progress, and it goes very quickly. And as physics teaches us that a body that's launched at a high velocity, it becomes difficult to guide this train within those ethical train tracks that we cannot absolutely not allow it to violate. Okay, or go beyond. Okay, also now this is another component that we've seen, which we'll see once again today. There's another field, another component, an autonomous component that feeds this race. It's the economy, which is the background, which acts as the background of this field, to this field, because all research seems that it takes lymph and force and strength from the economy, and we run the risk of making this subject of research that it would become a profit. We risk moving to profit from research. Okay, or even worse, to the advantage that this research gives in the military field gives, and in the field of quote unquote defense or aggressivity, but in any case that are not that are out of our control. In recent years, we saw those sophisticated devices for the skeleton. Now today, they are used by persons with spinal lesions and spinal injuries. These external exoskeletons, which were born, as often happens with progress in neuroscientific or technological progress in general. It was born in military research, and then it was in the atomic bomb itself. Nuclear energy was born as the atomic bomb. It was as in the military field, and then it was also used for civilian purposes to create energy. Therefore, we paused on these concepts over the years, and today we find something new today, because in addition to the inarrestable development of these sciences, we see the emergence of that marriage between artificial intelligence and neurosciences and technologies, applied technologies, to the capacity to make a different reality. No longer that man is modified, but that reality, in as much as man, in which man lives, is modified, and the environment of the metaverse and virtual reality. Now, we have tried to outline the fields of interest on which we will speak. Institutes and persons who are technicians and specialized persons who are much more competent than me. But we want to give an outline of how this study is going to be done through various environments, various fields, in which the metaverse is applied, including in tourism, education, architecture, maintenance, medicine, and also entertainment, the military field, marketing, agriculture, and fashion. All the real is used. This metaverse is used, which I repeat, is something that before which we really are amazed, because the metaverse calls into question all the absolute forms of knowledge that we have, both the objective ones through Newton and the subjective ones through the a prioris of Kant. Space and time are time was already violated by artificial intelligence, but not space. But now here we're in front also of the violation of this, because it becomes the dimension, the dimension itself of the absolute disappears almost. You understand very well here what horizon opens up before us, uh, a spectrum of marvels, or a monstrosity for others, as Ravasi said, or a new catalog of the real, as it's defined by a Stefano Coda, who's a scholar who wrote a very interesting book, which was pertinent to this theme, which is called synthetic reality. Okay, reality, augmented reality. What is that? Now, Professor Carrara obviously will go into this subject. Augmented reality is technology that permits us to enrich and to spread our vision of reality with digital elements through the use of electronic devices, whether they're smartphones or smart glasses or a visor or a computer or a tablet or a helmet. We tested it. It's enough to have a telephone, and we can see that also on internet. You can also find kits to build domestic modalities. Okay, and the overlapping of these contents are called technically overlaying. And the real world remains central, but the overlaying adds and removes certain digital details and shows the invisible. And it offers new strata of perceptions and completes the environment. So augmented reality today is able to exploit various types of displays we've seen. Theoretically, also, it can challenge in films, but also in some military applications. Sorry, civil, but also military applications, because the military precedes, unfortunately, always precedes this civilian application. We see these forms of display, which are inserted in screens or in windows of pilots or of cars. Formula Uno already has Formula One, or has this type of display in their windshields. Interactive windows, which can add information to it, so the pilot doesn't have to tire his eyes to see, but he can see it directly there in the window. In some circumstances, reality is increased, not by adding to it, but removing information and selection of certain information, which in that moment are more important than others. And this, in order to present information that may be more perceivable and clear as possible. Now, I believe we have here some tables here. The table of Aldwar software and the applicative fields of application. Number one is fields of application, ambiti applicativi. We begin with the hardware and software and the market, and here we open a world which is endless, where we can't see the end. Obviously, as we said earlier, one of the principal pushes to this train, which is figuratively given by the market, or depicted by the market. Infographics, here it shows the dimensions of the market of augmented reality and the world level in 2010 and in 2018, and you see that in 2025, in a couple of years, how you can see how the increase and dimensions of the increase. We estimate that in near years that the market will reach more than $198 billion of American dollars. I think these are in billions. Yeah, billions. Okay, these permit us to verify a little bit how the market moves. The first display confirms the boom of these technologies and the growth of the market of augmented reality and virtual reality, which are aggregated to each other. This in 2022. The next table shows the growth of virtual reality in the field of the various industries. As it's noted here, The video gaming seems to be the industry which has the most significant market, the biggest market. That of games is always but the rates of growth are faster in other fields. We're in billions of dollars. These industries foresee that the value of the market in 2025 will reach 5.5 billion, with rates of growth that go from 20 to 30 to 35% growth, depending on what we're talking about. This other graph is interesting because it shows the boom of selling of handsets, virtual reality, that is vision, visors, and smart glasses. For all of those devices that permit access to this form of technologies. The growth is very evident regarding augmented reality, which in reality, between the two models of mediated reality, especially it requires less hardware, which is an object that can mediate its use. Visual and text information like instructions. We have another stable, the sector of video games. It maintains a position of centrality in the market of virtual realities and of augmented reality. The sector of video games, among the first to adopt these technologies. This is something that, in fact, this has already been used for a while. It's not the three-dimensionality gives you the impression of virtual reality, but it approaches it a lot. And in any case, it's detached from true dimensionality of the classic games that we used to play. And the sector of video games is among the first to adopt these technologies and will continue to contribute in a relevant way to the market of software virtual reality and augmented reality. The strong adoption of technologies which are connected to virtual reality is due to the wide base of uses and the great availability to the spending power of players, and they tend to spend more. According to the market research future, the world market of virtual reality video games within 2025, by 2025, can reach $14 billion. In addition to video game sector, other fields of entertainment like sports are exploring the idea of a public which is oriented to virtual reality. The National Basketball Association has recently began a collaboration with Intel for the development of a solution in order to follow games remotely through a visor of virtual reality, and and that way I could crown my desire to go into the field during the final championships. In the end, if you pay enough, you can obtain anything. So he's always one. Okay, now other examples of the sectors where virtual reality and augmented reality can be used are given to us by architecture and the real estate interior design. And these spaces are often limited to scale models in 2D. I remember that the industry of information, the Apple was one of those computers which was specialized for having a particular graphics for development. So all architects and designers had an Apple at one time. The other was kind of dragged into it now. Healthcare and medicine and the furnishing of software increases value and offers remote consultation. And here we have the famous surgery who was at the marriage of his daughter, and they operated with a visor of 3 dimensions. Unfortunately, what was once science fiction dramatically has become reality. We have to make this is another ethical problem. We need to get used to this. The academic instruction and virtual reality are particularly useful when the costs and risks that are connected to information and the real and non, for example, the sector of the space or military industry and aeronautics. It's been years that flight simulators have been used, but sectors like automobiles since they're clear to make a trip in a real Ferrari in a Formula One is different than to do it virtually. Me and my daughter, my son used to play in PlayStation. Yes. Then I discovered that the pilots themselves train on PlayStation to see the circuits and to study them because exactly they reproduce. Certainly, it was the classic one in order to say how much virtuality and then helps. Logistics and operation, for example, the logistic NHL has produced the for visual information and to frame it as instruction and navigation. According to the data of the same company, the introduction to has increased 15% in efficiency. These terms have been increased now with COVID and with the lockdown because many companies had to were forced to apply these. And I remember what in the first seminars that we used to do when these solutions that happened from accidents. Accidents create history. History jumps forward, and often also because certain events, COVID certainly has given a lot of problems, but it certainly, from this point of view, it has sped up the passage to these new technologies, certainly. And traveling, for example. For 2 years, we weren't able, but the world continued. Travel agencies continued the travel. Thomas Cook collaborated with visual lines for the realization of videos of virtual reality, 360 degrees, for a new marketing strategy with the end of permitting allowing clients to immerse themselves into a touristic destination and to see a voyage, a trip without even actually paying for a trip, okay, to actually physically go abroad. No. And let's move on to Father Carrara, who has already pulled out the graph. He's already unsheathed the graph. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Monito, for your introduction and your framing of everything. What we'll do now for this afternoon is to present various fields and sectors, applicative sectors, and an outline for each field and the visualization of certain concrete applications that are already reality concerning the application of virtual reality and augmented reality. And then in the second part, we will try to launch and to lay down the foundations for so that a group of neuroethical research can take place. Could concern itself with these themes and subjects, because what would be the problems, neuroethical problems, and why do we deal with these problems? Obviously, what we want to do is not now and in the next hour and a half is to give a panorama to you, and then we have selected during the course some of these areas which we'll go more deeply into during the course, and which we will build around which we will build the reflection of our research group during the year, and we will continue in the second part also regarding the specific neuroethical problems. Okay, now after having said that, one of the sectors, or the important applicative sectors, is the theme subject of entertainment. Certainly the most developed sector of the application of virtual reality today, and but especially virtual reality, is that of the great field, economic and social field of video games, which today millions and millions of persons use on various platforms, which now we will consider, and which will permit us also to see the statistics on what are called hardcore players, the people who use 15 to 21 hours a week playing. It becomes a job, basically, playing on this reality and learning scenarios, opening scenarios, because many of them, which we see in the statistics, these are not persons that are mature persons from the neurobioethical point of view. Very often, these are individuals who are minors, who are less than 18 years old, and with a neurodevelopment, which, excuse me, to be being redundant, they have neuroethical problems here that are very significant that are opened up here. The sector of video games in cinema, there VR cinema or virtual reality cinema already exists, which is not one that goes to the cinema with a plastic lens that give me a reality that's pseudo or three-dimensional, or it's not like that. This is a further step beyond that. The sector of video games, entertainment through video games, which are applied in various sectors. And a final one in the musicals field, which we'll see, they are considered the most promising for the application of virtual reality, which is augmented today. It's enough to think of the sector of video games and an example of success of augmented reality, which provoked problems, psychological problems, and also managerial problems of safety of persons. When in the year 2016, Pokemon Go 3 came out, and we played with that. I remember in vacation that one of our brothers downloaded the app, and we started to follow it into gain points and looking for these little puppets. Another app based on geolocation in order to interact with other players into advanced levels. Certainly, this sector presents not a few challenges, and the focus would be the development, as happens now, of that graph of 360 degrees, which we will learn, and you will learn to know, beginning with the next month, how many technicians and specialists in that sector will present themselves and illustrate and present these technologies to us. So don't be afraid. We will build brick by brick this great world, puzzle piece by puzzle piece, a 360 immersive world, and we will seek a greater interactivity. And one of the objectives of all these technologies is to increase interaction of the various users. The virtual reality was for a long time considered science fiction. Now, especially thanks to this industry of gaming, it's entering and it's starting to become part of daily life, and it is a industry which also reconsiders and redefines what we mean by gaming, by games. This is considered by many experts as the natural development of the classical video game, which is two-dimensional. And thanks to devices that are today present, HTC, Samsung Gear VR, and consoles of the latest generation, other instruments, which now we will consider briefly, and we will show you in the graph of interaction, and also visors, etc. They are enriching, and they are giving rise to their revolution in the sector of reality, or virtual reality, which is augmented. This industry, which is a real industry, is seen in studies as sectors of the beginning of the expansion of technology of virtual reality. That is motivated by the fact that for many years, great massive investments and the great companies are localized in a particular nature, like the famous Canada, with the development of these companies dedicated to the entertainment through video games, which in recent years have converted practically into virtual reality. And today, with the expansion of augmented reality, massive investments have been made in this field by the principal companies in the sector, which permit us to improve in this sense and to attract many more, to render and to popularize these video games more. Virtual reality creates a world, an environment of simulated gaming, which permits the user to have an experience that's more and more similar to the real reality. We speak of the interactivity, which is potentially infinite through the reconstruction of sounds and the signs of interaction in a space which is shared in real time through other users. The big problem to create these virtual spaces, what we have considered the other time, the metaverse, one of the great difficulties was to render these worlds, these virtual worlds, which are now the great islands, to make them interconnected, and therefore to render access of the user in real time in this passage from the simulation of the user or the avatar without the necessity for me to be entering with another account or data or the game is experienced as an eliminated number, which is finalized to a scope predetermined aim, which is laid out by the by the scope of the game. This transforms with what is done, which renders reality, virtual reality, which is applied to the sector. It becomes a process of a dynamic, and interactive, and collaborative, without sequential limits of space, limitation of space-time limitations. Experience involves now a series of data, information, and sensations before, which were not available beforehand, which together with the realistic representation of the environment, of environment, of the player within the environment that itself has created, it increases the illusion. This is the theme, one of the great themes here, the illusion of reality. And also in the field of gaming, it's possible to subdivide technology of virtual realities into hardware and software technologies. That analogy, hardware, computational hardware and software in the 1970s, we find it also here, where the first hardware includes today innovations which are available of use and which are developed, which are differently developed depending on, but while software concentrates on the structure and the contents, which characterize a specific video game. And though we are seeing a significant increase in the production of contents and the applications of software of virtual reality applied to video games, many developments of the industry come initially from the field of hardware. The principal technological companies, for example, Microsoft, Samsung, and Sony, Calculus VR, they have made big investments on research and development of hardware components like those visors, which we have one now here, the characterization of one of these, those which are called motion trackers and data gloves and three-dimensional all of this armament of hardware that's spreading in order to increase the various experiences that are possible, the various experiences, which are no longer just the reproduction of movement and just the reproduction of sound, but will also be possibility to interact with this world that's recreated. And today there exist also other simulations which can be traced back to through gloves and motion trackers and data gloves. They send and simulate pseudo sensations of touching objects that do not exist, which are three-dimensional reproductions in the virtual world. And through these combination of sensors and of adaptations, they give us a feedback that becomes almost a sensation, a tactile sensation. Despite this, despite the growing popularity of online gaming and of virtual reality, one key factor for the development of the software applications will be the future supply at low cost, because you have to think that a jump of the Oculus 2 Quest in the last visor is a abyssal jump from the point of view of costs. If you want to buy one of the latest models of visors for virtual reality, costs around less than €400. The Oculus 2 Quest, okay, for the latest visors presented by Meta cost $8,000 almost. This is a space which is rather interesting. This last visor is highly strengthened. There's a bunch of other characteristics with respect to what were once produced and sold, and for the visor that was only €400. The games that are available now, like card, are in fact solid indicators of the increase of this market. Google station, and we can see this video, represents how to construct the simulation. There are various apps of simulation of virtual reality in various fields exist in the field of education, etc., of learning, various disciplines, and what is useful for a structure that can be that it be able to be constructed through, let's say, the just a few things, fundamental things, and it explains to you how to construct a visor. What you need is, in this case, is a support that is a cell phone, which is appropriate, which can support the applications and can permit you to download the apps in order to reproduce what will become the simulation of virtual reality. According to the research, the global market of gaming has reached, and at the end of 2022, should reach almost $10 billion. And the participants of playing in this industry are Xbox One of Microsoft, PlayStation 4 of Sony, the Wii of Nintendo, personal computer, system, Mac system, and other research underline the importance of virtual reality in the market of gaming, the gaming market, not only in the Western countries, but in the East, in Pacific Asia. Considering that's the region which has the rate, a particular rate, which is called rate of annual composite growth. They say that they calculate that effectively Asia as one of these is the fastest rate of growth, which is around 25% in the period which we consider of this year. There are some motivations, according to certain experts, because of the presence of a growing number of young people who are experts, potential expert consumers with sufficient power of purchasing power, especially in China, India, and countries of Southeast Asia. In addition to that presence, we consider the abundance, the hundreds of millions of the hundreds of millions of millionaires that exist in China. This is not surprising. In addition to the presence of companies like Sony and Nintendo to make this geographic area the most lucrative market for the present and proximate future regarding the video game industry of virtual reality. And in addition, there's the projections of other companies are very similar. Okay, now some data here. According to some data, hardcore gamers, which are defined as those who spend 15 to 21 hours a week gaming in these virtual reality games, basically, they're in rapid. The number of hardcore gamers is in rapid growth. And this graph, these statistics, which general statistics say that as far as the market is concerned, the software applications in the field of gaming concerned, the research estimates that the value of business of $6.9 billion, which will increase up to 11.6 by 2025. And especially as far as these gamers are concerned, we see statistics that are done among Italian users where there's a variation of 60% from 2021. 60% of these hardcore gamers are men, 39% are 39 women, and there's a big slice of men, and they or who are less than 17 years old, and they're considered this is considered significant fact. The statistics say that among the users which have played more than 21 hours a week, 16% of them are women of age more than 55 years of age. This is an interesting piece of data. And male players are of much lower age, and most of them, there's a slice of a large number are less than 17 years of age, but a great part of men who play up until more than 21 hours a week are from 18 to 24 years of age. Another sector, this is the first sector of entertainment that we can consider. Another sector, and another interesting sector, is the development of cinema, and then of entertainment videos. Cinematographic industry that we estimate is the industry that will render more popularize the use of virtual reality, and which is augmented in the global sector. Because if not all the population has access to gaming and video games, virtual reality. Excuse me, just a moment. Some technical problems we've got here. It will be the sector, I was saying, of cinema, which will render these technologies certainly much more popular. To see a film through virtual reality represents a completely different experience with respect to a film seen in traditional way. The director focuses the intention, the user, through a sequence of scenes which are predefined, whether in a film that's called a VR film, a video that's done through these stereoscopic immersive vision, which are helmets. This overturns that perspective, and and it permits the user the sensation to the user, the sensation, an immersive sensation within the scene. So the point of observation, the process of observation, is now managed in real time by the user himself, who can personalize even the experience according to his own interests and expectations. Therefore, the user doesn't simply see, in this case, a three-dimensional image like happens today when I go to the 3D cinema, for example, where we have the plastic eyeglasses, rather of the sensation of being part of the film itself and its environment. And for a long time, the cinema industry has been attracted by this reality of virtual reality, and various experiments have been done by Paramount Pictures and Fox and Disney and Pixar, Lucasfilms, and the fact that the cinema industry is brought to virtual reality and that has confirmed by the interest and the big investments which are made available by these companies. In various interviews, some of these experts, virtual reality, etc., say that in the field of film, they are making steps forward that are very gigantic in order to experiment on these technologies. As for example, Nokia did the first VR camera, which is projected specifically for the great Hollywood films. And these technologies, which are called Holson, and it's not the only one in the market, is what renders possible the production of VR films at an acceptable cost, because obviously this is also an important point. It enables a new market which will not only involve the traditional forms of collective cinema. So the idea that I go to a cinema and I have to go to a place, and I have to go to another place. But then there will be that industry of a cinema that can be used online, virtually online. Examples of this, there are many of them. One example of how the cinema industry is investing massive capital into virtual reality is that of Disney, of course. 2015, the American Colossus, together with others, invested by opening interesting startup company called John Deere. The principal objective of this company opened in 2005 with about $65 million. It was a big setup at the beginning. Initial capital was to render his idea was to render the visual, giving the user a strong sense of presence which he never experienced before. This technology would allow a highly immersive experience for which the user can live the contents with a visualization, stereoscopic at 360 degrees, and literally feeling himself immersed in the action of the film. Cinema who does not only represent the only market of that technology can be applied, but also the production of videos which are done, for example, like documentaries. And important companies are already available to the wider public. For example, we have a documentary which was produced regarding the migration crisis, which was called Migrant Crisis, the whole picture. Sky News, a documentary on the phenomena of migration which happens especially in Greece, and the reporting permitted the user to experience the immigration crisis in the first line, and to be able to experience its dynamics and problems. Another example, another video, which Nepal after the earthquake. Okay, the sound stopped for a moment.
Documentario era quello di far vivere
Documentary was to the people experience the North Korean situation regarding the problems of this people, and another one was in Nepal experience and the discovery of this spectacular land and the mountains. It's one of the last VR films done by Disney, the celebration of the 60th anniversary of Disney, which permits people to participate into a theme exhibit by experiencing an experience which is similar to the park itself. No, this is a characterization of these contents may explain it, and there are companies that buy that finance these or develop technologies inside Syria. This is another documentary. Now, another sector in the field of entertainment, in addition to cinema and video games, are video lives, a sector in which technology of virtual reality is emerging, and that of streaming of live events through virtual reality. And there's various research which were carried out in this field. In this event management hold that many events in approximate future will adopt this technology, and from the gaming activities like sports, which we'll see shortly, with certain parties and festivals. In general, the business applications, political, like conferences and demonstrations and manifestations and demonstrations, etc. In general, in any event of social interest, for example, marriages, this could resolve problems of space, could have a virtual demonstration, so we wouldn't have problems of traffic any longer, etc., right? As in the past, as some experts have said, that happened with radio, that resolved the problem of reaching the masses and the audio TV. Now we solved that problem with visual experience. Virtual reality will today have the potentiality to develop a new format in which persons and live the experience of an event, a living event, a live event, remotely, in an immersive and interactive way. The virtual reality, therefore, will permit new opportunities and perspectives in this sector. Now, some of these in the field of musical sector for years, the music industry has done this and recognized virtual reality of having this potentiality. And when I speak, we can show and see what you will see here. Now, for a valid interest in this sector, in the issue of Second Life. In fact, various singers and bands have their own avatars. Among the most famous at the time have been certainly U2 for Italy, Vanna Grande, who in 2007 she move the public to participate in one of the first virtual reality concerts, which was sponsored by Telecom Italia. Also, in this case, the user can participate in the concert in an immersive way in the presence or remotely. And we'll see what happens when they're present. Or he can experience emotions of going up until the stage with the protagonists, the singers of, and he can interact with in real time with the other participants. Yeah. The pandemic basically accelerated and contributed to the acceleration and to spread these instruments. Now, the problem of limited number of physical seats disappears for those who don't have the possibility to reach the physical place of the concert. They can live it in remotely. An interesting example of this industry of music, like the industry of music, of augmented reality. We're approaching technology of reality, virtual reality, augmented virtual reality, and one of the three record labels, which are the most important in the world, which has launched a partnership with iHeartMedia, that is an American company, which is leader in the world of media, radio and television. The objective of L'accord was to connect DC fans sponsors in order to realize a series of revolutionary musical immersive experiences in streaming and in various. No, this project was already realized in the music field, beginning with, especially with from 2014 on. They have been strengthened, especially through the pandemic framework. Another framework after the musical framework, certainly here will result in among some of our experience, which I hope they grasp what I'm trying to tell them, that we are asking them to develop some seminars in the future on this theme, or ad hoc seminars, is the sport sector. Also in the sport sector, there are many fields in which the implementation of virtual reality promise, but there are already some very promising things, could cause some changes. The experts say that at least there are two great lines of application which have and could greatly better development augmented reality in the field of sports. The first area concerns the field connected to the athlete himself and the team in the strict sense, and includes all of those activities, for example, coaching, training of individual athletes or of the team as a whole. Just to give you some examples, and then it include the simulation and development of team strategies and monitoring improvement of individual and collective performances, including, and it also the theme of physical rehabilitation of the athlete and the projectation and experimentation of new technical and sport tools. This is the first great field in which virtual reality has already application in the sector of sport. The second great area, which goes beyond the athlete or the team in particular, it regards that application connected to the gaming or the entertainment or of, for example, the experimentation of in first of any type of sport, including those extreme sports, for those who could not be done in real life by the individual. Imagine a person who's in a wheelchair and could not be able to do it because real life does not give them the possibilities, maybe because they're in an environment where that sport is not practiced, etc. These are recreational applications. This can influence various specters of sport. In particular, for the first group of activities, it permits the trainer of the athlete to have new and more efficient ways of working. If up until a little time ago, the only technology that was used as an instrument of training was that of videos, also training through videos, through which the trainer could film the action and review it to understand various errors. With technological progress, we have the possibility to carry out analysis of a biomedical analysis of which are at a detailed level, and process and progress of the training, coaching become more and more complex. And also at that level, virtual reality can give and can already have concrete applications. And people are speaking about what is defined transferred learning through these technologies. This virtual reality can improve abilities and performance and reaction time, and the technique of the athlete with personalized training according to the physical cycle situations of the athlete, and also the specific situations based on for example, the characteristics of or particular environmental conditions. In that way, it permits the development of schemes and strategies that would be better. Virtual reality in this field can concern not only the biomechanical aspect, but also training, but also psychological field by improving the performance of the athlete in critical phases of the game. The use of virtual reality as a platform for training, and it represents, therefore, also a significant interdisciplinary field, because we synchronize it with the direction of the sport psychology, which is already developed and widespread. A project of success, and this here we can see in the field of training, in the field of virtual reality, represented by the so-called Street VR, which was born in 2007 and invented by a football player, by the director of a lab of Stanford University. This technology permits the realization of immersive videos, 360 degrees, of high definition, through which the player can relive the situations of play with visualization in first person, various roles and positions of the game itself. And it permits him to study eventual errors that happen during preceding encounters, including strong and weak points of each athlete, and developing the best strategies for the team overall. This project, then in 2007, has been developed by Stanford University, and then it spread in 2017 to 2014, 2007, 2014, up to our days. And thanks to this method of training, the teams obtain competitive advantages and better results, and they have statistically demonstrated regarding a team in particular. And then after this experimentation phase, obviously all the other teams wanted to acquire this system, and effectively they patented, etc. And for many colleges now, including Arkansas, Dartmouth, etc., they are using this technology. The use of virtual reality in sport is not limited only to these fields or these first applications that concern the team or the individual or the athlete, but it includes the whole field of simulation or participation in a sport environment, like live, or which is either live or simulated. This part of virtual reality to the sports sector is very similar to dynamics of products that are offered for entertainment in gaming, in order to improve the experience of the public of a sport event through systems that allow the users to navigate, for example, within the stadium during a game, or within during a competition or other places of sport interest. Within these virtual environments, it's not only possible to be present at events in an innovative way and immersive way. In that, in fact, it's possible to buy gadgets and tickets and interact with famous athletes in real time, and through platforms which are dedicated and which are experienced virtually in any type of these sports. And there have been already first sport events that were produced with this technology. One of these developments, this was a depiction of a simulated depiction of virtual reality here, in which the author, the person who uses this technology, it's as if he were immersed, let's say, into a simulation project, which was called Dayton 500 NASCAR race. She won the first simulations that was given already here. You have to have a visor in order to be able to see it, to watch it through a virtual reality, and all the gadgets that are connected to this. Another interesting sector, which is connected to these sectors, which they complement each other, is that of tourism. And then connected to this, to tourism, will be connected to the educational environment as well, the educational field. The educational field. In the touristic field, the application of augmented reality can improve the experience of the a user when he travels, and he can tell about his. It can the observation is this is already done. This is a little app of the Attapacis here in Rome for the navigation. Also, the Bass of Caracalla have used this. This is Adeno, which we're seeing here. This permits tourists to experience simulations of historical events and places and objects, and by seeing them in their original version, and by putting it on top of, layering it on top of the present place. And we cannot not mention what was that this is one of the projects that this is here, the project, the Attapacis. While I'm describing it, this through this video, it was done at the Attapacis at the entrance of the museum. The visitors are given here. Our friend, they have augmented reality, thanks to which they can observe the coloring, the original coloring of the Attapacis, and the reproduction. That's Augustus Caesar there. In addition to additional information of the history of the bas reliefs, the apps for smartphones can also be useful, and it can resolve certain language problems, which in this app, the Google app, translate can we can aim with the camera. You can substitute to the original with the language that you choose to observe a static statue or the ruins of an ancient construction. For many of the user is not enough any longer, especially in order to attract a wider public of very young people. Many of the museums are adopting this experience, especially of augmented reality, to furnish the visitors more information through the added descriptions, which are closer to the work, and it gives life to these three-dimensional figures, or permits the visitors to live an experience that took place in history, or to give life to objects or scenes, or to show the construction or reconstruction of ancient buildings. Certainly, obviously, there will be a lot of things that would give rise to, if we go to visit a museum with virtual reality from our company, on our sofa, in our bed, certainly, maybe for the artists who has painted that sculpture or painting, maybe we are losing. We launched this message, maybe a message that another application of augmented reality today, virtual and augmented reality, is in the field of museums, of zoological aquariums and scientific museums, of the so-called theme parks as well. Services and experiences that are proposed are inserted within the relative framework or environment as they never were before. And so visitors, therefore, are invited to immerse themselves completely and to participate in an active way in science and history and in nature and in entertainment. The presence of zoological or aquarium and zoos have presented us with a necessity to adapt ourselves to this new to virtual. It's made it so that effectively we generate a new framework for these realities. The experience of augmented reality for these activities are not only is a perfect combination between reality and virtual reality, but it is a opportunity for visitors to connect themselves with various environments in a unique way, which is enjoyable and all-encompassing. And it has a potential educational impact of the experience of itself, which becomes more sensitive to the issue. It makes us more sensitive and more connected, let's say. And for years, theme parks offer a pure opportunity to people to go to voyage to distant lands and fantastic places, etc., etc. This is what theme parks have always done. Now, in the field of these frameworks, which are situations of entertainment, now this lays down the basis and the waters for the application and the use of virtual reality and in augmented reality, the mixed reality for learning and comprehension, for example, in physics and chemistry and astronomy. Here, this is a reality that can be used, not so much, but it can be used also with normal tablets, which I just download an app for study and learning of, augmented reality, which allows me to read a certain space, and it overlays and a detail of anatomy, for example, overlays. And with neurosciences, to be able to see these environments of a human brain, which can be turned around by the tablet and taken apart, and I can follow it and I can see it from within inside in various sections, can make it rotate in an environment that the environment of this classroom or my office. So the environment of the educational environment and which sectors of the educational sector and what interactions can already exist. This is an example in 2013 of a company which presented in science an application which is called Marxent for the advancement of research in the field of neurology, which this app allows us to observe a three-dimensional brain and the reactions that relationships that it has based on sounds, which are selected by the user. About 44% of the participants used the application during the event. It gave statistics to this company. Okay, now in the field of not only regarding simulation that we can use in the educational field, which we'll briefly take a look at the medical field, virtual reality and augmented reality are realities that concern learning and education in the field, medical and healthcare field, for example, in learning of anatomy, for example, especially in human physiology. Now, another two videos can help us in order to understand the educational field. Here, once again, a video on Apaches, but this is on Apaches. How would I study it? In the sense to go to the museum and from an interactive book that combines physical interaction with virtual interaction, and therefore with interaction with virtual reality and with augmented reality. In this case, you can have simulations of virtual reality. This was done at the University Sapienza, and it speaks to us of what will be almost a present future of learning. Now, one thing will be the traditional in our university library, and I go and I get a physical book and I begin study and reading, in this case, the Faculty of Architecture, and therefore this would be the traditional method of learning, while now in the video we apply immersive reality, and and you can see how the style of learning can change through interface like this, which would permit to us an experience which is diversified, and images and writings and explanations could appear with the possibility of modifying and augmenting and enlarging and going through images that would be static otherwise, or start a video of the image of the Apaches, for example, in this case. Therefore, or a simulation, a three-dimensional simulation of the structure itself, which emerges from the physical reality, which is not tri-dimensional, not three-dimensional. And so I can use, at the end, this experience in live. Now, what could this is augmented reality? Okay, and now another example of how didactics in classroom or in virtual classrooms, for those who do not already know, we can Teams, Microsoft Teams is already signed together with Meta an agreement to implement Teams within these virtual places of simulation of interaction of access between virtual, which could be a class of pontifical Athenaeum of the Metaverse. Okay, now how could this video be, or in some cases of simulation, could it be a lesson through this system of VR Redo? Students would be in virtual reality, while the simulation in the virtual classroom, we would have the situation in which the teacher interacts, could also change his place and could chat and approach and go walk into the first row virtually, or to use a whole series of instruments for a learning, a more dynamic learning experience, which would be more effective from the point of view of visualization, and therefore the use of several senses, quote unquote, because here it would depend on how many sensors are hybridized. Now, the capacity of interaction with and desynchronization of platforms. Okay, and this would be what of synchronizing various platforms, not desynchronizing. Okay. Maybe in 5 years, our sessions, we will do them in a simulation of a type like this. No, in any case, this shows you how the tendency it will develop in the field of didactics, but it will delocalize in a simulated environment, which will permit everything that now in this video we are seeing. Obviously, we are seeing. See, we have the possibility to do this interface through in a live. We will have an experience which would be certainly, from this point of view, be much more enriched with respect to the visualization of what we just saw. Architecture and planning of architecture projects can be observed three-dimensionally. We saw the Apaches that emerged. We can insert into the chosen urban environment. Augmented reality can also be exploited in a lab space of projection, and it offers us the possibility to see three-dimensional models by a two-dimensional model. And in cases of, there are some successes in various companies who are dedicating this application in the architectural field, in the field of design, and also maintenance, and smart glasses, or tablets dedicated to the experts in
automobilistica
designing cars or in other sectors, which will allow us to increase the quality and speed, and also in critical situation, which we see the necessity of both hands in order to carry out the work that needs to be done. And the use of visors for reality, augmented reality, and logistics, it will have the potential to reduce the costs significantly, for example, of storing and improving the process of management, etc. Some sectors that experts tell us, the principal logistic activities in which augmented reality could be useful. One is the operation of storage This is about 20% of all logistical costs, they tell us. And this could be used, which indicates virtual reality as a potential to significantly reduce costs by improving collection costs, and can also help us with the training of the new personnel who are going to enter in this sector, and then the optimization of transport optimization. And another is the third field, which they tell us is last mile delivery, and the last phase of delivery. The growing use of electronic commerce has brought us to a boom of delivery services of last minute delivery. The last step of delivery is very often the most expensive. Now, in order to diminish the cost of the project and to increase profit, is a promising application of devices of augmented reality. No, exist. It applies advisors for maintenance in self-diagnosis, for example, in cars for systems for air conditioned systems. One of the sectors that's prevalent, which we'll now consider, and we will carry out during our journey in the future months, will be the field of the medical field and healthcare field. The medical and healthcare field, we have applications which are already realities that we have today. First attempt is to go back to the 1990s, and today, in particular, what are the principal applications in the medical field? Certainly, the field of teaching and training for three-dimensional visualization and great volumes of data and information. They improve and facilitate comprehension of first of all, the basis of human anatomy and important physiological principles. And interactive assimilation of the human body based on infinite situations of intervention. They permit transfer of notions and procedures, and the improvement of competency and verification of learning verification, the planning, pre-op preparation. And we can see how we can basically see a replication with the augmented reality, which simulates the progress of the blood vessels in this leg in conformity with the progression of trauma on the bone trauma, and then design and planning and verification of procedures of complex surgical interventions through simulation of specific simulation of critical situations which would be complex. Another, which is that, for example, that we have, which will be developed also, is that of support for operational assistance in the neurological and neurosurgical system, and the use of systems of visualization and three-dimensional imagery and situations of patients in real time, and therefore overlapping of what the neurosurgeon sees regarding or augmented reality in this case, what he has in his framework, which is realized by neuroscientists, systems of assistance, remote assistance through collaboration of several professional figures which are not necessarily physically present in the operating room, and collaboration. Okay, now the use of systems for analysis and comparison and manipulation of images and medical mission and information in two-dimensional and three-dimensional images in virtual reality, which permit the sharing of the opinions of various specialists in real time, for example, in continents that are different continents, long distance. These systems reduce the invasivity of various methods that we use now of analysis. Another sector, that of treatment and planning, biological planning, that is support for radiological process to improve the precision of anatomical investigation. No, in virtual reality, okay, some of these techniques permit collaboration, and the rehabilitative field, patient support to reacquire locomotion through preparation of physical rehabilitation exercises. So I can have now one ad that we can say the two great friends will return of neurobioethics will return to the classroom very soon, and our technicians later on will have our experts in engineers and doctors and clinical workers who use today virtual reality and simulations of virtual reality, augmented reality in the field of rehabilitation and care, treatment. This issue, we will deal with this. Okay, another subject, sport for disabled peoples and the use of environments in virtual reality to they help disabled persons to experience in a preventive way of the difficulties that they are going to encounter in the future. Also, we can suppose various situations like autism in the psychological and psychiatric field. Later on, we'll take a look at that as well. The neurological evaluation, and then also a rehabilitation, psychological and psychiatric rehabilitation. And we'll speak about that also in the ad hoc seminars, uh, adaptation of emotional social disorders and disorders which derive from post-traumatic stress syndrome and problems that are connected to addiction, the possibility and the great field of application and great positivity in this case, great positivity in this application, also of virtual realities and augmented reality. Certainly, with these great potentialities and these great, together with them, with these great joys of possible applications in these sectors, we will also we also have potential risks, things that need to be taken into consideration of the availability of this um, technology. No, in healthcare, it's an effective instrument to improve comprehension and diagnosis and to prepare procedures before surgical interventions to manage the relationship between patient and doctor also, and to be able to visualize data and information ad hoc. And it's also a revolutionary technique in the information industry, and allows improvement and verification of various competences and professional requirements of the sector. Okay, now one example that has been emblematic because it was the first surgical for example, the removal of a colon tumor, which was launched for the first time. It was a surgical procedure that was done in live and was launched online through streaming by using virtual reality. The operation was carried out by Dr. Safir at Royal Hospital in 2016, and he used a whole series of simulations of virtual reality with a system of removal of a colon cancer of a patient who was in English 70-year-old patients. The procedure was transmitted not only to the students of Queen Mary University of London, rather it was also open to the public of the whole world, an entire university class, students, individual and professional and curious people. They were all able to be present at this first surgical event through, obviously, the use of their own smartphones, which were inserted, for example, in the hardware support of Google, which was built, which I think I bought. I don't know if I have one of. We saw it in the video. We saw this in one of the videos. Okay, another important field is the field of research, scientific research. Okay, the potential of virtual reality in this sector is was underlined from 2007 and highlighted by a scientist, important scientist and researcher. His name was, who has held that that application would have a great potentiality in these sectors of research. Number one, in research, lab research. Number two, in the observation of social sciences and economic sciences. Number three, in informational sciences and computational field. And he says that in the field of lab research, thanks to the fact that they don't impose physical limits and virtual and augmented reality. It offers the creation of experimental complex environments which permit the development of situations and dynamics in these virtual labs, and they would offer scholars, researchers, a important help in the application of classical studies with new technologies or methodologies. And the ability they would make possible experiences that would not be possible earlier, which would be or were in the past limited. Now, these are other sectors of application regarding regarding research and development. Okay, second area of application regards economic and social sciences and the use usefulness and utility of these tools as environments of social and economic research. Virtual worlds, future metaverses could be useful tools for the observation of social trends and finding and emerging cultural movements, which various economists hold that a growing part of human experience of the economy and culture will happen in the future, in the near future, within these virtual environments. Therefore, for this reason, it's necessary to have a study of dynamics of this new phenomenon. The third and last field of research of application regards the possibility which is offered to information sciences is related to this the ever growing experience based on the present limit of technology, in particular regarding problems that connect to the bandwidth, which can limit the experience itself. And within this third line of research, we have studies regarding artificial intelligence and with the scope of improving avatars in AI and to render them more realistic and wise their gamut of possibilities and in and another the interaction between man and computer to improve methods of visualization and interfaces and to create situations that are more immersive and real. Research in the field of virtual reality not only would represent a useful tool for the improvement of scientific research, they represent an instrument that will transform, some experts say, the field itself of our society. In the end, finally, some final fields of application could be that of the paradigm of flight is a emblematic paradigm. Effectively, the paradigm of flight we've seen throughout 2 years of research regarding AI. Those who've seen the work of our group, the paradigm of flight is the concrete paradigm of application. And regarding algorithms, which are especially the for example, the algorithms which deal with the length of airplane flights. Now, the development of military field applications and development of they derive from them derive all the applications that we are seeing now in the healthcare field, entertainment, et cetera. Now, as has always happened, the neurotechnologies and then the field of technologies in general, the military field is the propulsive field from the economic point of view, and also in fact, and the repercussions that will derive from this field can be those which will enter into the field of clinical, no, in the zone of war. Augmented reality can make data useful and create networks on the war field. In the point of view of the soldier, objects can be marked by special indicators to um, point out potential risks or dangers, and they can facilitate navigation 360 degrees. They can sell to soldiers. Okay, and the Marines of the United States Army in recent years, they are developing many these programs a lot, which are called augmented intensive team training, which are aimed to the training where soldiers through the use of this realities. Now, a final sector will include several examples is that of marketing. The example of marketing, which explains augmented reality, and it is described with augmented reality marketing. It's an acronym. These are techniques that facilitate interaction between client and product within the environment that the real world is founded on. Which now, we'll just give you two examples of this. Number one is that which is taken from the store, of the eyeglass shop, where through these apps, with these companies, give the possibilities to test at your own hand in your own home in a virtual way on one's own face, various types of forms and figures and models of eyeglasses. One of the examples is one of the examples, one of the emblematic examples of this. Another application, I don't know how to pronounce it, but this program, Shiseido, 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 Shiseido. Okay, this case concerns the known Japanese company whose recourse to augmented reality is rather strategic. The application that they propose is called digital cosmetic mirror. Essentially, it's a kiosk, which is very simple, and there's a photo, there's a camera, and you devise the face of the person. The screen reproduces, and you can digitally produce or apply the makeup, and you can also eventually print a copy. Software is based on face recognition software, uh, and it finds applications also in all sectors that require the wearability and the level at the level of the face for eyeglasses. We've already mentioned that. And then the second, okay, now De Beers, the jewelry company, it's developed. Okay, it was courageous. No, these are some, we would call them brands. These leading companies in developing and the sign of diamonds and jewelry. They use augmented reality in a sector in which there's a strong emotional component
generata dal
generated by physical contact called, the application is called, it doesn't have a particular name. It permits people to virtually try on jewels and expose them on markers in the face of the screen. And this is free, and this software permits people to try precious jewelry at home, renders the sharing of photos on social networks possible from home. Finally, no, sorry, other two examples, Heinz, which is the ketchup company in the field of supermarkets. At the end of 2011, it launched a marketing campaign which lasted 3 months, and it used, you can see it here, augmented reality to promote the use of tomato ketchup as an agreement, as a agreement for the kitchen. And for SmartWork, the users could frame with the screen the labels, and in addition to the possibility to download the recipes, including the participation to training and competitions. This campaign, there were many users. Was this testimonies? This gives witness the potentiality of augmented reality. It was considered a successful. Okay, now fashion. Now, one of the applications which overlap objects of the over the simulated body. This is one of the This is one of the first runway walks of various fashion houses that they developed in the virtual world. And they created simulations which are completely virtual. It was kind of virtual world of the fashion. This is the last framework, applicative field that we will consider for today. Now, the second part, that the last part of this afternoon, is the discussion of what might be the problems, neuroethical problems, bioethical problems, and why we are concerned with them. Why do we want to, from the point of view of neurobioethical point of view, why do we want to look at augmented reality and our brain in virtual reality? And we see how today virtual reality is becoming a experimental setting of all those experiments, mental experiments, which from the ancient times to John Locke, for example, they are mental experiments, which are not simulatable. Today, virtual reality becomes a real laboratory to see how our cognition and how reactions, the level of our principal organ, which is the brain, and how our nervous system is modulated formed through scenarios that bring us to a counterintuitive reality, because effectively people used to ask in the film of Matrix, what is reality? What is reality? How can we define real? What is real? Basically, this is a great problem. It will be a great further problem. We will spread like a drop of oil in society. When these societies spread in society, when these technologies spread in society, without speaking about reality, I know that you can smell or touch or see certain things. Okay, Morpheus says this real is simply neurochemistry of my brain. And in the video, this video on neurosciences and the brain, effectively, it's speaking to us of how the sensation of reality through these technologies will be altered. Now, we'll give you some examples. Now, first citation of some figures, the more famous one, Mark Zuckerberg. He said that a world in which everyone will be able to share the experiences as they have experienced them. Facebook Meta wants to become the natural destination for this type of content. Today, virtual reality is conceived especially in a video recreational way, but tomorrow it could become the most social of all. Now we'll look at the philosophical and ethical and neuroethical problems in 2023 regarding the metaverse. Now we know that exists a code. There exists a code of ethics, ethical conduct, a code of ethical conduct recommendations for good scientific practice and consumers of VR technology. Now, we're effectively one of the last pages of this long article from 2016. That's when they proposed a kind of ethical guideline. Why did they propose a kind of ethical Ten Commandments for the development regarding users of virtual reality? Not to stop its development, but to underline certain critical points and to prevent ethics enters in this sense in order to be able to see certain problems, in order to be able to intervene or to modulate the application, to be able to avoid certain problems. We live in a new world which is full of technologies which presume to change human nature. It's an artificial world in which the perceptive and cognitive capacities of the human being would be strengthened by the use of devices that would give access to a more rich reality, which is augmented, virtual, mixed, etc., but from which we do not know the risks, but of which we do not know the risks. We live in a new world, which is full of technologies that propose. Okay, now we're going to try to potentially look at some of the motivations of certain risks that virtual reality, augmented reality. Okay, that which historically is that philosophers of the mind said this, the philosophers that reflect on anthropology, we could say, of virtual reality. What historically would historically be new in the virtual reality is that it creates not only new risks, but also new dimensions, ethical dimensions, and legal dimensions due to the fact that a virtual reality, the human mind, is deeply incorporated into another virtual reality, the conscious human mind, which was developed according to certain specific conditions and in space and time and laws, physical laws that we know on this planet. The human mind, which is conscious, now it becomes informationally over connected with possible realities. Okay, technology, virtual reality, in the end, will change not only our general image of humanity, but also our comprehension of deeply rooted notions like the conscious experience, individuality, authenticity, and reality. In addition, it will transform the structure of our world of life, determining or causing completely new forms of interaction, social interactions, and daily interactions, and changing the relationship itself that we have with our minds. This is from Michael Madari and Thomas Metzinger. Certainly. No, virtual reality and all those applications that we saw, they have an immediate effect, which is that of produces to resolve human problems in various fields. Okay. Now, what could be the field in the field of virtual reality? What risks could it give? One of the great subjects that these philosophers face is the theme, which is dear to the philosophy of the mind, is the illusion of incorporation. That is that they're saying, philosophers of the mind are saying that in order to highlight the psychophysical unity that characterizes us, we are individuals, organisms, biophysical organisms, in which biophysical organisms, which our mind is highly incorporated, embodied, and embedded. So our mind is informed and generated through interrelationships and growth and structuring of our body, biological body. What is our body? Lives synthesis and physicality and materiality that makes us up, and psychicality that makes us up. And to create the illusion of incorporation, then, which we will see, these terms need to be gone more deeply into later on. Okay, experiments that today the interaction between the scene between experimental psychology and clinical neurosciences and philosophy of the mind. The illusion of incorporation would be a great field of potential risks that would be connected with the use, especially the use for a long time during the day, for many days during the week, for many weeks during a month, for many years. We have experimental studies on this, how they could change the structure, the interaction between our mind and body and the sense of our mind's incorporated mind into a body that has characteristics, physical characteristics that reflect the physical laws. Okay, another. This is the list. If we have time. Okay. Now another potential risk, which is connected and analyzed by the DSM-5, which lists all of the psychological disorders, that is the depersonalization and derealization, which can induce people to an abuse of these technologies. The excess of risky contents like sex, and habitual porn, visualization, etc. And there's also rape in the metaverse, accusations of that, okay, violence and narcissism and psychopathy and negligence towards others in the real world. This is a reflection of the fact that my mind is decolocalized into a virtual world with effects which are apparently do not have the same seriousness or connection, physical, that I know in the real world. Number 5, the absence of temporal limits of permanence in virtual reality. 6, mental manipulation, and then this mental manipulation becomes a real behavioral manipulation. When those who've studied that, this, and then the Prometheal effect. No. Among the possible risks of this technology, there's the illusion of being incorporated into something that does not have a material consistency. For example, in an avatar of various dimensions, age, or color of the skin. Immersive virtual reality, but never in general any technology that carries out the illusion of incorporation, as various philosophers of mind think. It destroys our relationships with the natural world. The traditional paradigms of experimental psychology cannot induce illusions, such strong illusions. In the same way that looking at a film or a video game, which is non-immersive, does not manage to provoke an illusion of possessing and controlling a body that is not our own. In virtual reality, the human mind, which virtually creates our experience in the real world is deeply incorporated into another virtual reality. This means that the conscious human mind, which has been developed under certain specific conditions and over millions of years, thousands of years. Okay, we see these effects in this article on the ethical code for the development of virtual reality in the field of philosophical reflection. The first example, which is characteristic of this, is the illusion of incorporation of one's own psychologically translation, the illusion of one's own capacities of management, of movement, and therefore of paternity, of one's own acts through the physical body that I have, and the avatar, virtual avatar, that now towards which I have incorporated myself, embedded myself. There are so many studies from the neuroscientific point of view in this field in which there is an illusionary effect of paternity, of action, mastery of action of the avatar with respect to the physical individual. As we see, for example, in the use, this is a simulation of immersion, a virtual immersion. There's a psychological effect of delocalization and incorporation, and the management of the life of this avatar, which is taken up by the psyche of the individual himself, which is translated at the somatic level as well, with effects that are significant. The illusion of incorporation also is seen with the use. It couldn't happen with the use of augmented reality in this experiment, which was carried out of the illusion of the limb of the ghost limb, combination of what we know from the split brain experiments of lobotomy, which were carried out by Robert Sperry, the Nobel Prize winner. Okay, Michael Gazzaniga also did research on this. They're based on the hemisphere of the brain. So there's a duplicity of the mind, which speaks two different stories. The person is presented with on the left and sees that the attribution of the action changes. It describes a situation and they change. Now this is used by using virtual reality, by giving it in order to give a simulation of illusion of the limb. So it exploits the syndrome of the ghost limb, the individual who is an amputee, now this is another, together with another experiment that was done, which speaks to us how it's possible to move the temporality to give an illusion of experience of the past through what is called reality, substituted reality. Therefore, it's possible to give a false perception of time into our minds by using and playing with these systems of reality, augmented reality, in this case, of virtual reality, simulation of virtual reality. Right, sorry. All of these preambles, which speak to us about the extreme unity, psychophysical unity that we are as human beings, that can become concrete at various levels in disorders like this. The disorder of depersonalization and derealization, okay, which can be characterized as sentiments, chronic sensations, and sensations of irreality. Chronic sentiments or sensations of unreality. These are not phenomena which are hallucinatory. They're not hallucinations. In the case of depersonalization, the individual experience an irreality of his corporal self. And in the case of derealization, the individuals experiment the external world as not real. For example, those who suffer from this disorder they tell us that they feel as if they were automatons, the loss of the sense of agency, and to feel themselves as if they were living in a dream. that they feel like they're not the agent of their own actions, and they feel themselves that they are living as if they were living a life or a dream, in a dream. It's noted that disorders of depersonalization and derealization involve the sentiments of reality, but not delirium of a reality. No. Therefore, there is a dissociation of the phenomenology, the low level of reality, and the cognition of a high level. That is someone who suffers from depersonalization can lose the sense of free will, and in that way, they will not form the false conviction of not having any control of their own actions. And this disorder is relevant also because technology of virtual reality manipulates the psychological mechanisms which are involved in generation of the experience of reality, and mechanisms that are similar or identical to those which are disordered for those who are distorted for those who suffer from these disorders. These are important analogies for which effectively we could give, or on YouTube we see it there. There are persons who have bought experience these visors and using them for 24 hours a day, and they were filmed in the use of living and what it would mean to live, what effects it could be used for 24 hours a day to use visors, Oculus visors. You can, if you want to, you can see those videos. They're very interesting. You can find them on YouTube. These experiments that have been done. And people who are enslaved by technology, you could see with effects that are of consumption of the human corporeity. Think of wearing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for a few days, these visors. Think of what it would be like, and all the phenomenon of and problems that are connected. Okay, now others would be the access to high-risk contents, including sex, pedophilia, virtual rape, violence, and black triads, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Okay, the avatar it becomes that I enter into harmony, complete, and I extrapolate equalization of the sense of self and at that moment we could reflect some phenomenon like that of negligence towards others in the real world, or the duration of immersion, the sense of temporal limits of permanence in the virtual world. In fact, up to this point, the research has been used for brief periods of time, and immersion in general of just a few minutes or hours. But once a person, once this technology is used, once you sell it to a child or lower age people and it becomes more widespread, who can guarantee that the use only for a certain hours, for a certain number of hours during the day? Okay, the risks of the abuse of these technologies with the correlating problems of psychological order and neurophysiological order. If we think that neuroethics arose almost 50 years ago, 1973, precisely because of a massive practice of pseudo-experimentation, neuromotor pseudo-experimentation, which was taught by parents to parents, thousands of parents, to hyperstimulate children from 0 to 8 months of in an artificial way in order to quickly development all of their neurodevelopment of their motor skills. This basically went against the neuroethical principle, which effectively said that the nervous system of those newborns is a highly neurodevelopment is not yet acquired that maturity, that level of maturity in order to sustain those functions. Let's think then, not only of these to stimulate them from a motor point of view. But if I, with a newborn or a child who's 3, 4, or 7 years old, will continue with his neuro development and a whole degree of maturity that's not yet completed of the neurophysiological system already, I habituate him to an interaction and an asphyxiation and a scission, but also a non-formation also of his self, of his psychological self, and of his psychocorporeal self with respect to interaction with reality of these means, these technological means. Therefore, okay, let's say that there are many phenomena. For curiosity here, the Promethean effect, because of for behavioral manipulation, is an example of in behavioral manipulation of virtual reality. It was called that way by Nick G and Jeremy Bison, the Prometheus effect. This is experimented when this experience when individuals confuse, excuse me, they conform themselves to the behavior that they believe that others expect of them based on their on the appearance of their avatar, based on the aspect of their avatar, the appearance of their avatar. Sorry, based on the appearance of their avatar, there's this um, conformity of their behavior based on the beliefs of what they that they think that others expect of them based on that. For example, it was discovered that individuals were incarnated into a taller avatar, negotiated in a more aggressive way with respect to uh, those who had a shorter avatar. The exchange of behavior in the virtual world are of ethical interest because that can have implication of the in the physical world. For example, if the transactions, financial transactions take place or can be carried out in these environments, and they can have repercussions in the physical environment. Okay. Now with this is not Prometheus, by the way, it's Proteus. Proteus. Okay. Proteus syndrome. It's called Proteus syndrome. Okay. No. No. Virtual reality is the representation of possible worlds and possible selves with the scope of creating a sense of presence in you in the user. Virtual reality, immersive virtual reality, but more in general, any technology. Okay, I didn't get that. Okay, now our interdisciplinary reflection has just begun, has hardly begun, with the addition of September, with this panoramic going more deeply into this subject, okay? The various sectors and some points of reflection we've offered to regarding the neuroethical problems. We give the beginning of this great year dedicated to the reflection and going more deeply interdisciplinary, going more deeply into this subject. Our next appointment will be the 25th of November, and I already announced that we will have our informational engineer, Dr. Rosario Moscato, who will moderate, and he will introduce, and I greet him. Okay, he will guide most of the event, the 25th of November, and he will intervene, and 2 experts will speak as well. In addition to Rosario Moscato, 2 other experts will speak. One of them is works for one of the biggest companies, who studies and who applies the development augmented and virtual reality, which is KPMG. And he will be an Italian representative, senior manager, data science of KPMG, Dr. Alberto Marocchino, and then another one of his assistants and experts in this technology, which will be done in the seminar in November. And the next seminar after that will be the use in the therapeutic field and neurorehabilitative field of of augmented reality. We will go more deeply on the field of the use of art and therapy through these techniques. Our dear friends will return from Santa Lucia University, and also some of them are professors of the Sapienza University and researchers in our field. And with that, now we can conclude this afternoon our second event. It was launched, and it can also be found on YouTube through data streaming, and we will take up again. It can found in a virtual way, but not an augmented way yet. It's not augmented yet. And we will meet again through our newsletter. You'll receive it, and we also receive the course material, and you'll be able to, from today, you can download some of the slides. Those who want to download the presentation that we just used, you can find it already on my webpage, robertocarrara.com, albertocarrara.com. You can find it. You can find the presentation. You can download it. And we thank those who are connected to us virtually from far away. And we greet and say goodbye to those who are present here in the classroom. And if we're going counter-current, we're going against the current. There are a lot of people here in the classroom this time. So thanks to everyone. And we'll meet in the next week. Those who want to take a trip to one of the last series. We can't not mention it. There's a movie that's part of the cultural development. You can also see Inverse on Prime. The first two episodes have just Inverso in English. The Peripheral. It's called The Peripheral, and it just came out on Prime, a web streaming. It can be complimentary course material for our course. And if we had time, we can have a nice cineforum on these issues. Thanks to everyone, and have a good evening, and especially have a nice weekend. And to my friends who are following us from Thailand even, and we'll meet again in the next month. Have a good 3-day weekend, and we'll meet again soon, okay?